Story 1. Wibta, if I report my otherwise well-meaning coworker to HR for unwanted advice she's been giving me? Original post, September 15th, 2020. Throwaway. I've been having beef with my coworker Lauren since she started working in the same office as me a year ago. I am a tomboy and been so my entire life. I look like a guy, I like to dress like a guy, and almost all of my fashion icons are guys. But I'm straight and female, and I'm comfortable with who I am. It just so happens that I prefer to wear menswear for a plethora of reasons. Having short hair and an allergy to certain ingredients used in cosmetics makes me look even more like a dude. Lauren prides herself on being a straight ally, which I am cool with. She does her own thing, that is totally fine. What isn't fine by me is this weird fixation she has had on me ever since we met. Lauren is convinced that I am a closeted trans man. When we are alone, which I make a point to avoid to begin with, she is always telling me how she will support me when I come out, and how she has all this advice for people like me. She goes out of her way to track me down and tell me about these blogs about people like me, which is cool, but please leave me alone so I can do my job. She once even asked me if I ever thought about doing hormone treatment. She creeps me the fuck out. So, thankfully, I haven't seen Lauren face-to-face since our office began working from home. But every now and then, Lauren will try and reach out to me to talk, which I ignore, of course. That is until last night, and the reason why I am writing today. I don't know how she did it, but she sent me a personal email containing a link to a psychiatrist who specializes in counseling pre-op, pre-hormone therapy trans men and women, and the usual spiel about how she is always there to help me. I'm reluctant to bring this up to HR because I don't want to discourage Lauren from offering up help to those who need it and do it on the Reggie. But I feel like she invaded my privacy big time by not only finding out my personal email, but bringing her unsolicited advice from the office to my personal life and thus violating my home-work-life balance. The other reason why I feel like this will be an asshole move is because everyone at work would know that it is me who reported her. It's no secret about Lauren's behavior around me. I don't know if anyone else has reported her, but if I do and she gets fired, then this is all going to come back to me, and I would be in trouble with my colleagues. While our office environment is pretty neutral, some of my coworkers are friends with Lauren, and I am afraid that they will blame me. I just need a second opinion. I don't know how long I can take this harassment, but Wibda, if I report my coworker to HR for harassment, I don't need her advice, I don't want her advice. I just want Lauren to leave me alone. Edit. Yes, I have told her I'm not trans. She is still convinced that I am in denial. Edit 2.0. Holy shit, her behavior is not okay. I am reporting Lauren to HR first thing in the morning. Thank you for helping me see that this is all fucked up. Verdict, not the asshole. Relevant? Comment? Commenter 1. Have you discussed any of that with Lauren? OP, yes. Along with telling her to leave me alone and that I am busy and that I am not comfortable talking about this. She still thinks I am in denial. I don't know what her deal is. Commenter 2, NTA. This is harassment, and you are well within your rights to speak with HR. It is up to HR how they will handle it. You can let HR know she has good intentions, but that she needs to be spoken to about appropriate workplace behavior. Reporting to HR doesn't mean someone automatically gets fired. You should also try to be more explicit with her about the fact that you are not trans. You are happy the way you are, and you do not appreciate the unsolicited advice. If she still doesn't listen, HR is your next step. Make sure to keep a record of everything she does and everything you do in response to protect yourself. Written records are very important in the all too common situations where someone tries to go on the offensive after a complaint. Written records are a good backup if you ever have to defend yourself. OOP, tried to many times to count, she still comes back. I have the email saved and screenshotted and backed up on my emergency flash drive. Commenter 3, NTA. She isn't an ally. She is a person in love with her self-perception as an upstanding person. She's trampling all over your reality in order to create a version of events where she can be the hero in your story who allowed you to find your true self. It's not okay, and if she won't stop on her own, you absolutely need to go to HR. Update, January 30th, 2021, 4 months later. Hi guys, it's Tomboy Troubles 2020 here with an update. It's been a while and a few things have happened. Some great, some shitty, but there's a happy ending. You can reel the original post here. As I read through each reply, it helped me realize that Lauren's behavior was messed up. I was reluctant to go to HR at first, because I was afraid of the consequences. I have friends who are LGBTQ+, who often talked about how they wish they had straight allies back when they were coming to terms with who they are. A few stood by her because she's the ally they wish they had. Considering how people are so quick to cancel over disagreements, I was afraid of getting canceled myself. It took a lot, but I went to HR. We had a Zoom meeting with Lauren, a mediator, and myself, but it resulted in a slap on the wrist for Lauren. I was really pissed. It felt like Lauren got away with it. Aside from a whiny email from her where she insisted she was just trying to help, which I also reported to HR, Lauren stopped talking to me. That is, until a few months later. Due to current events affecting our industry, there were mass layoffs at the start of November. I was spared, but Lauren lost her job. Since then, I haven't heard back from her, and I doubt I will see her again. Good riddance. Another thing I wanted to add, and I think you may find this interesting. As it turns out, I'm not the only person who made a complaint about her. So many of my coworkers had issues from her going back to when she was a new hire. I won't go into too much detail, but here's a few incidents that stand out. Lauren pressured an intern to come out when he didn't feel comfortable. She gave a bisexual coworker shit for going on a date with a man after breaking up with her girlfriend. She attempted to get someone's mystery novel blog canceled. She constantly butt in people's conversations to offer her own unsolicited advice, etc. Honestly, I could write a book about it. But long story short, Lauren was an obnoxious coworker masquerading as an ally, and everyone suffered for it. So that's it. Lauren was fired. We're still working from home, but I feel that the vibes at the office will feel much lighter now that she is gone. If I have anything else to say, if there is someone who is harassing you into being someone you aren't, tell someone. Tell anyone. They need to know that what they're doing isn't okay. Going forward, I'm going to stand up for myself. Thank you all so much. You are all awesome. Also, guess who got a proposal on New Year's Eve? This lucky tomboy. And you can bet that I'm going to get married in a tuxedo. My husband-to-be thinks one of us should wear a white tux and the other a black one. What do you think? TLDR. Lauren got fired. Finds out she is a shitty person. I learn a lesson in sticking up for yourself. I'm getting married. Story 2. My brother-in-law confessed feelings for me after I went wedding dress shopping with his fiancée. Original post January 3rd, 2025. This just happened today, and I'm using a throwaway because I promote my small business on my main, and I want to be anonymous with this. Okay, I'm pretty overwhelmed, so I'll start with some background. I have been with my husband for 5 years. We've been married for 2. Since early on in the relationship, I've been great friends with his older brother, partially because I always wanted one. When he started dating a girl about 2 years ago, I went out of my way to make sure she knew she had a friend in me if she wanted, since we're the only girls in the family. We're great friends now, and since they got engaged 3 months ago, I have been helping with wedding planning and was asked to be a bridesmaid. We went dress shopping today and had a blast. We went to brunch, had some mimosas, found the dress, and went back to their house to celebrate. I ended up alone in the kitchen with my brother-in-law a bit after being there, and he said he just had to tell me something before it kept eating at him. I was a little buzzed and confused, but was not at all expecting him to say what he did. I think I've had feelings for you for a few years, and I've never been able to tell you and just needed to know if you ever felt the same. I completely froze and just shook my head. I told him that no, I have never thought about him in any way other than a friend and a brother, and I never would. Before he said anything else, I bolted back to his fiancée and the other girls there and very discreetly told her I got my period and wasn't feeling well and would have someone come get me and then come by soon for more wedding planning. She thought nothing of it, and I called my best friend to come get me. She dropped me off at home. My husband is working right now, and there is no question that I am going to tell him as soon as he gets home. But I just have no idea where to go from there. Do I tell his fiancée? Do I make him tell her? Do I leave it? Do I have my husband talk to him? Has anyone ever had something like this happen or have any advice? Anything is appreciated. Update January 4th, 2025. Thanks to everyone who helped calm my panicked mind after my original post. I didn't want to tell me husband we need to talk while he was still at work and make him panic, so having some reassurance from here was really helpful. I also noticed a lot of people asking for an update, so here is one that even I was shocked by as I lived it. It's not exactly the earth-shattering blow-up most people thought it would be. My husband came home and he immediately knew I had something on my mind. I explained the whole thing, and he was livid at his brother. Thankfully, he gave me a hug, and I broke down crying from the stress. He assured me I did everything right, and it wasn't my fault. After that, he went to call his brother and tell him that he knew what happened and wanted to talk to him one-on-one. Well, it turns out that his brother and fiancé were already on their way to our house to talk about it. As soon as the other girls left, not long after me, my Bill confessed everything to her. First, she slapped him, deserved. But after they talked and he promised her that his feelings for her were genuine, she said that he needed to apologize to me and his brother, and then they could go from there. So they came over, and he and my husband went and talked, while I talked with his fiancée. We both cried and talked for about an hour. I promised her I never had any feelings for him and had no idea he ever had any for me. Apparently, she had caught him gazing at me on a family vacation once and thought maybe he had some attraction to me, so while this sucked, she felt some relief that she wasn't crazy for thinking it. He admitted she was right and thinks his feelings at one point were out of jealousy, that his younger brother was further in life than him, and he attributed that to me in a way. This was new to him as the older brother, and they really hadn't compared each other much growing up, just because they had vastly different paths. It was little apples to oranges. But now there was some perceived competition on a similar playing field. The feelings had faded, but when she came home saying she found a dress, he felt an urge to come clean, and he wished he had said it differently or worked through it with some help before to actually understand what the feelings were before making this whole mess. I don't know about all that, but I guess I could understand it with a more clear head. I mean, if the Oedipus complex can be a thing, then I can see him having some complex feelings that manifested as attraction, but didn't affect his love for his fiancée. This all happened in one night, and he was visibly distressed over it, so I'd find it hard to believe he could weave a whole story like that, so I'm inclined to believe him. Once my husband and his brother came back to the living room, my Bel looked like a puppy who just got in trouble. Also looked a little roughed up, but I didn't question it. We all talked, and he apologized to me for putting me in this position. Where it landed, their wedding is on hold privately while they figure out next steps. Thankfully, there was nothing booked and no date sent out. We had gone wedding dress shopping just to get an idea, and it was just luck that she fell in love with a dress. They're going to go to couples therapy to decide if and how they can move past this. There is clear love between the two. Things will be tense, but I think he feels genuine remorse, and my potential SIL says she holds no ill will against me, and if they move forward, she'd still love to have me as a bridesmaid if I'm willing. My husband and his brother have some serious work to do on their relationship, and my friendship with my Bill will never be the same again, but we'll see what happens from here. We've also agreed to keep this between the four of us, but they will be honest that they're doing some premarital counseling before setting dates or full-on planning. I saw a lot of comments telling me to keep my mouth shut and no harm was done. While I guess I can see your point, I just couldn't imagine keeping something like this from my husband, especially if it came out later and he found out I withheld it. Trust is huge in our partnership, and even just omission feels like a betrayal of that. Sure, I knew this could blow up if I let it out, but it would be my Bill's fault, not mine. He had all control over telling me what he did. Thanks to everyone who helped me through that scary processing time alone. Relevant comment. Roaring Doodle. I'd love to know the subtle things that you did to him all these years. You never at all flirted with him in any way? Bro's feelings and confidence to shoot his shot came from somewhere. It wasn't like it was a smooth talking question, he stumbled through it. And no, I never flirted with him. I teased him, in the same way his entire family does. They're that kind of family, and after about a year, I joined in. The only thing I did that the rest of the family didn't was drunk with him more, basically just because we're the only two that like to do shots and we have the same liquor preference. I would never dream of flirting with my partner's boyfriend at any point in the relationship. Update 2 January 5th, 2025. I wanted to address a couple common responses I've been seeing here and give another next day update. To everyone telling me to not tell anyone or give him a mulligan, that was never an option to me. My husband and I are a team and we don't keep secrets, only surprises. It's something we agreed on before getting married. If I didn't tell him and it came out later, it's as good as me lying to his face. I did nothing wrong, and I know my husband would stand by me, so that just wasn't an option I was willing to consider. To all the claims that I'd be blowing up multiple families, I'm not the one who confessed feelings. He opened this can of worms, and it's not my responsibility to keep this secret. If this does blow up his relationship or his family, that's all on him, not me. There were a lot of other common themes in here, but those two were very prevalent and I wanted to dispel them. So for this small update, my husband actually called his brother today and asked if he wanted to go to one of their favorite bars to watch the game together today, something pretty common for them or all four of us to do before all this. My BL was shocked, but agreed. Shortly after, his fiancée called me and asked if she could come over while they were gone. She was honest and said it might be awkward, but we would do this a lot and either do some DIY together, get a puzzle out, or watch movies together. She wanted to see if I'd be open to keeping this up as long as we were both comfortable with it while they work their things out so our relationship doesn't deteriorate. It meant the world to me, and I said, of course. All four of us agreed that they, Bill and fiancé, would start seeing a couples therapist ASAP, and my Bill would see one on his own. Until they get a better grasp on what his feelings are and their own plan, we won't get all four of us together, and Bill and I will not be alone together. My potential SIL is one of the most level-headed people I've ever met, and so kind-hearted. My Bill used to have a lot of walls up that she broke down pretty naturally, and this is so out of character for him. His proposal to her was so well-planned and thoughtful and tailored to her down to the smallest detail. He picked her a new outfit, had the perfect ring, even the blanket at the setting was her favorite color, a detail he did intentionally, and he had even arranged to have her parents there who live hours away. It's clear that he loves her, and I truly don't think that even if I did say yes, he would not leave her to be with me, not that it would have been an option. I truly see a road forward for them and all of us. We're all committed to finding the best outcome for everyone involved. My marriage is solid, and we have our marriage maintenance couples therapy appointment coming up soon anyway, so we'll check in with an outside opinion, but I'm not worried. They are going to a consult with a therapist at the same practice in just a couple days. It obviously won't be a quick and smooth fix, as this was fucked up, but I'm much more optimistic than many comments here and wanted to share. Relevant comment. OK underscore. Might underscore 6409. Future Seal is pathetic for staying with that man. All I'm gonna say, OP. I don't think it's pathetic to give something, even a fucked up situation, a little extra time to decide on going forward. The way she is looking at it is that she can leave and nobody would blame her, and she wouldn't blame herself. But she loves him, and for herself she wants to take a beat to more deeply understand the situation before she makes a decision to stay or leave. She was planning a future for him, and if she just leaves immediately she will have a lot of inner turmoil to work through. And what-ifs. If she takes a few therapy sessions and decides to leave, she would feel more confident in her decision. That's her choice to make. You may think it's pathetic, but it's what she decided was best for her. Sanjean 6280. This story is kind of anticlimactic. Couldn't you add in a tiger or a sword fight? Oopie, here's a little more of a climax. Turns out she had like a physical attraction, little crush on a coworker at one point, like 8 months into their relationship, which is why she had a little more sympathy and was willing to try to work on it. She said it can happen and not change that she loves him. Maybe the coworker was like a spy or something to add some drama. Kidding. But there was that slight development. Story 3. How do I, 31F, handle my awful sill? 33F at my boyfriend. 30M is family Christmas. Original post, December 20th, 2024. My 31F boyfriend, 30M, and I have been together for 3 years. We have gotten to know each other's families quite well as we live nearby and can visit often. I love my boyfriend's family except his brother's, 33M long-term girlfriend, 33F. Called her SL for simplicity in the title. Let's call my boyfriend James, his brother will be Mike, and his brother's girlfriend Kelly. Kelly and Mike have been dating for 5.5 years. I truly believe she is well-intentioned, but oh my God, she's freaking terrible to be around. I get along with almost everyone I meet, but being around her actively makes feel like I'm losing brain cells. We are polar opposites, but that's not why she's terrible. She makes wildly inappropriate comments to everyone around her, has no sense of self-awareness, and thinks the world owes her something. Kelly and Mike are not in a good financial position. Kelly is unable to work because of her traumatic childhood, and Mike works 50-plus hours a week in construction. He busts his butt to provide for them, and she spends her days at the local bar with the local riffraff, then complains about not being able to afford to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home on several acres of land in our HCOL state. For Christmas, my boyfriend's parents are hosting celebrations, and we are doing a small gift exchange with a max budget of $10/person, and then everyone drew a name from a hat, and we get that person one gift of up to $50. Total spend is $100 each. So everyone gets one big gift and a couple of small things. At first, we had no budget, but Mike was concerned about being able to participate, so we set a budget. And James slipped Mike $200 so he wouldn't have to worry about it. It's not Secret Santa, so everyone knows who drew which name. James drew Kelly's name, and immediately she started sending him links to things that were $100 plus for him to get her. He reminded her of the budget that we set to benefit them, and she said, "You can afford it. These are the only things I want." And made it worse by saying, "Mike drew your name, and we're getting you something nicer than $50. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt that she may not know James gave Mike the $200 to help them out. She hounded James about it being unfair that they suffer while we have so much so clearly he can afford to get her a nicer gift. Both James and I are very comfortable, but we've both worked hard for everything we have. She insulted him, called him greedy, told him that he's selfish and only cares about himself and the fancy life he lives with me, and that Mike and her resent him for abandoning them. James is the kind of person who would give his last dollar away, the shoes off his feet in a snowstorm, and who acts tough but is actually just a big softy. A lot of people take advantage of that, and he caved. He got her the fancy over-budget gift. James and Mike's parents just kind of roll their eyes at her when she makes weird, inappropriate comments, and their mom has confided in me that she's happy at least James picked a normal one, and that she's glad she doesn't have to take care of both of her sons into adulthood. They are completely unaware of what's happened behind the scenes between Kelly and James. I'm not afraid of confrontation, but don't want to ruin Christmas by losing my shit at her. She's bound to say something or do something because she always does, and I really don't know if I can bite my tongue much longer. I am furious at her. I feel like I'm going to explode if she makes one offhanded comment or snide remark, that I'm betting it'll only take 20 minutes for her to say something stupid. It's not about the gift. We don't care about the money. To me, this is icing on the cake of her already poor behavior. To James, it's just another thing he wants to let slide because he loves his brother, and it makes Mike's life easier if Kelly is happy and not complaining. How can I navigate this and stop her from taking advantage of James in the future? Talking to her rationally is futile. James did try that, and that's how we're here. Edit. Thank you all for the comments. I am going to push pause on this account until after the holidays, and will post an update if anything interesting happens. I've decided to go into this armed with a couple of the quick and simple responses that people have suggested in here. My favorites are, "Wow, what an inappropriate comment," or "I can't believe you said that out loud." James and I will chat too after the holidays. I agree he needs to set better boundaries, but we can have that conversation privately after the chaos of Christmas. Happy holidays all! Relevant. Comment? OP should use the gray rock method on the SIL. OP, it feels like that's how we're here. She says dumb, rude, and insulting things, and everyone either ignores it or caves in to get her to stop. I'll find a way to keep my cool on Christmas Day, but this can't go on forever. It just can't. Commenter 1. Whenever she says something stupid, reply with a simple, "What an odd thing to say," and walk away. You can omit the odd part when it doesn't fit the statement. OP. As an example of the things she says, my boyfriend has a cousin who had a car accident and one of their legs has a severe burn scar on it that covers like one half their leg. Cousin was wearing shorts when he first met Kelly. First words out of Kelly's mouth were, "Whoa! What the fuck happened to your leg?" It's awful. I do like your suggestion. My facial expressions usually speak for me, but with how she spoke to James, I'm livid. Commenter 2, imagine how hard "what a weird thing to say" to a person would have hit. OOP, it's true. Locked and loaded with this one for Christmas for sure. Commenter 2, your boyfriend shouldn't have caved. What will he do when he marries you? Will SIL continue to get her way? OP, to clarify this, I hope he never changes. He's the sweetest, most giving person. One of many reasons I love him. It just sucks to have someone take advantage of it, and his family, over and over again. She does it to everyone. It's terrible. OOP should cut in the conversation with SIL. OP, their conversation happened over text message, so I didn't know until after it was said and done. Does OOP have a good relationship with Mike? OOP. Mike and I have a good relationship, but we're not that close. I think that would be overstepping. James has had similar conversations, though not about not tolerating her outbursts, more in line with being available as support if things get bad between him and Kelly. OOP gives more details about Kelly's working situation and how James might be a people-pleaser. OP, I put the bit about why she can't work in here because it's ridiculous, but also her words verbatim. It's not my place to tell her to work. When boyfriend's mom brings it up, she goes on about privilege and her anxiety. I empathize with anxiety, as I also suffer with that. She allows it to control her, though, and isn't willing to seek help or work on herself because she doesn't see it as a problem. Regarding James, it's definitely a pattern for him. When people he cares about push him, he wants to make them happy, even if it means sacrificing his own happiness. I always have to stop, pause, and check in when we plan vacations or make big decisions to make sure he's not just doing what I want for the sake of it. We have a good system down for us, and he's able to be more honest and transparent about his wants when given the space to do so. With his family and friends, he does struggle with boundaries. He's aware and trying with little things, telling friends it's not okay to call him at 2 a.m. unless it's an emergency, and is actively working on it. Ironically, if anyone treats me the way Kelly treats him, he turns into a bit of a pit bull. I have had a few issues with men at work. I work in a very male-dominated industry with lots of sexism. Think oil rigs and fishing boats kind of environment. When they act up, James is in my corner and ready to defend. He's stepped in when my family has overstepped, and the only time I've ever seen him snap back at Kelly was when she made a comment to me that crossed a line. However much of a pushover James is, Mike is 100% worse. He is very sweet but has absolutely zero self-esteem. I think that's why he and Kelly have lasted so long. Whatever behavior she exhibits toward us, or that we observe, he deals with it 100x at home. James has talked to Mike and offered an ear and support, but at some point, Mike has to be willing to help himself, and he doesn't love himself enough to see the problem. James has read these comments, and while he's still going to give her the gift, he is starting to see the problem and impact it has on his relationship with his brother. I hope that inspires setting healthy boundaries. I'll support him in whatever he decides is best. Does OOP have to see SEL and Mike on a regular basis when visiting James's family? OP. We only really see her on holidays and at family gatherings. James might see her more often if he's with his brother, but I'm fortunate it's only 3-4x/year for me. The rest of his family is wonderful, and we would never not show up for them because of her. OOP and James need to tell Mike what Kelly said via text messages. OOP. It's more of a concern that whatever we deal with over a couple of hours at family gatherings, he gets it 1000x worse at home. He has very little self-esteem, and she walks all over him and is absolutely cruel. James has talked to Mike about how she treats Mike, and he doesn't even try to defend it. Just gets defeated and sad. He deserves better, but doesn't have the self-esteem to believe it for himself. This is what we tiptoe around. Right now, Mike will confide in James about some of his relationship with Kelly. James always offers support, options, and a way out. Mike isn't trying to make an exit, though. If James pushes, Mike backs off and stops telling him things. It's hard in abusive situations because if you push too hard, you may inadvertently ostracize or push the victim away, making them feel unsafe sharing with you anymore. We don't want that. Editing to add, but for me, because I'm a third party, I do plan to respond with some of the suggested remarks like, "What a weird thing to say," or "Wow, that's really uncalled for," instead of letting it slide. Update January 2nd, 2025, 2 weeks later. Thank you to everyone who commented. This is a rather anticlimactic update. Christmas was actually lovely. Kelly behaved for the most part, though of course made a few left-field comments. Using Mill and Fael for simplicity, but my boyfriend and I are not married. Here are some examples. Emil opened a gift. It was a turkey baster. Kelly exclaimed, "Whoa, Phil, trying to get her pregnant again?" Mill and Phil are in their 70s. Awkward pause. Turns to me and James and goes, "Actually, I'm surprised it's not you." And on recommendations from Reddit, I laughingly responded, "What an uncomfortable thing to say." Kelly went on about how she expected after we took a 2-week vacation, we would be sharing a pregnancy announcement. I responded, "Well, that's kind of weird." I got James a gag gift that says some sexual innuendo on the butt of a pair of pants. Kelly kept making comments about, "No one needs to know the details of your sex life." Despite that, the pants were a joke. This was repeated all night, but I just ignored it. Otherwise, we had a great time and a great family gathering. I wish I had something more exciting, but the answer I got helped me have a few responses in my arsenal to respond to her weird comments, and otherwise I ignored her. Thanks, Reddit. Relevant. Comment? Commenter 1. Ugh. I'm happy it wasn't a big to-do, but I would have run out of patience for this person on day 1. Just reading your original post had me ready to ask to be your +1 so I could say the things you feel like you can't get away with. I'm sorry this is a dynamic you're currently stuck with. I hope James can have a convo with Mike at some point, at least concerning the entitlement with the gift. That was wildly inappropriate and trashy. I hope the one-liners continue to serve you well in the future. I'd be tempted to start slipping Benadryl in her first drink of the night, just to have a pleasant and relaxed holiday for once. Lol. Obviously, I don't recommend anyone ever actually do this, but it's fun to think about. OP, James has given me permission to respond as I see fit. He also reinforced that she is the wacko, and he has my back if I need or want his support. The only reason I've stayed silent for so long is for the sake of peace with his family, but they're all on the same page. Why did FIL give Mill a turkey baster? OP. Fael gave it to her as a stocking stuffer. I don't necessarily agree with giving household tools as gifts, but she was excited about it as baking is a hobby of hers. Commenter 2. No one needs to know the details of your sex life, but I'm going to loudly speculate about how much of it you had during a trip anyway. OOP. Asterisk making artificial insemination jokes to a 70-year-old couple and your parents-in-law. Commenter 3. It sounds like you have a better outlook on the situation. That's good, at least. Those why did you say that? And please explain your racist/sexist/ etc. comment phrases on work on people who have social awareness. Commenter 4. I think you made the best out of the situation over the holidays. This needs to be properly addressed with Mike, though. We, or I if it's only from your BF, love you dearly and want the best for you. I didn't really want to bring it up, but SIL comments are getting out of hand. I'm not sure if you told her. The money I gave you before Christmas was supposed to make Christmas easier for all of us. She kept begging and insulting us, guilting us into spending even more than the budget we set on top of that we gave you already. Overspending a little is not the problem, but her attitude towards it is. We don't appreciate the snide remarks and hurtful comments. Maybe she's jealous of our life. We understand it's hard for you guys. But we didn't deserve to be treated badly just because we don't struggle. Please have a proper conversation with her about how she talks to and about us. Next year, if she insists on only wanting stuff outside of the budget, we will opt to not give a gift at all. We hope you understand where we are coming from. It's just getting too much. Something like that. Story 4. Is it weird to incorporate martial arts at my job? Original post March 4th, 2022. When I saw your recent post about the kneeling coworker, I started thinking all of the weird things that I do, many of which are related to my martial arts experience. For example, at previous jobs I have taken a controlled fall to get low enough to grab something off a low shelf or under a desk, and at most of my jobs I've stood in stance to write on a counter or other surface that was made for someone much shorter than me. I practice forms in out-of-the-way areas during breaks and downtime. I give myself wrist locks when my hands cramp. And yes, I occasionally kneel, though I'm more likely to lie on the floor, for ergonomic variation of position, or just because it's comfortable for a particular task, more likely on carpet than tile, to be fair. My jobs haven't tended to be office jobs, but I do wonder what your take is on whether getting into unusual positions at work is unprofessional, or just one of those quirks that makes life more interesting. I try to limit my impact on other people. I'm not practicing punches in a crowded hallway or doing forward-rolling falls next to someone trying to review a spreadsheet or anything. And I've avoided some of these when they had obvious problems. Probably better not to take a fall in a chemistry lab no matter how quickly I want to get what fell under the lab bench. That said, I'm not particularly self-conscious about incorporating my martial arts into my day in small ways like the falls to do work down low or doing stances at a desk. Is that a bad thing? Update 1 March 31st, 2022. I clearly could have written that better. Since when I explained to my wife why I was asking who Dwight Schrute was, she laughed at how far the character is from a match to my personality. I blame writing the letter in a hurry and editing for a thorough list of examples and brevity rather than tone or context. I see how statements like, "I'm not particularly self-conscious," could make it sound like I'm being intentionally conspicuous rather than merely being willing to explain why I'm in stance to write on a low counter or mop a floor. Anyway, I'll probably continue some of it since my current job, like many in my past, is pretty solitary, and I still find that incorporating the movements I am already familiar with frequently makes tasks easier, more ergonomic or faster for me. I started incorporating most of these movements to solve specific practical problems. To use the fall as an example, I needed to basically get low enough to have a shoulder on the floor dozens of times per grocery night shift to pull products on the bottom shelf from the back to the front, and I found that a sit-down back fall was quicker and less fatiguing, for me, than other techniques I tried. The least practical things I do with these at work are things like doing a stance, to vary my position to fight hip stiffness, what I had in mind when I made a comment about keeping muscles active, doing a technique or form as a stress reliever, brain break, stim, I'm likely autistic, or killing time around the corner when the work is done, but we need to stay a few more minutes in case there's a last-second forklift delivery. I'll probably trade that last one for something else, but I'll continue doing the stimming and stiffness examples for the time being. That said, I will certainly be toning it down. That comments section made it clear that martial arts techniques have too much risk of going beyond my usual quirky geek vibe and into sideshow geek or SpongeBob in karate gear at the Krusty Krab territory. I'll avoid the gentle falls anywhere anyone could possibly be an eye shot with less than 10 seconds notice, easy at my current job since I don't take falls anyway due to product contamination concerns and obstacles, and I'll do the same with forms. I didn't do those where people could see anyway since I try hard not to be disruptive, and forms are something I actually do get self-conscious about, but I'm increasing my safety margin. I'll also try to reduce the frequency of stances around people, but there really are times when I need a position between standing and crouching or a way to generate some pushing power, or something else where they would be practical for my non-office job. I'll think about other ways to fill the role of martial arts in my solutions to practical, ergonomic, and stimming problems. But it'll be a slow process to come up with solutions and retrain my body not to default to these motions in the cases I decide it's worth it. In short, message received, commenters, but it'll be a slow process to tone most of it down. Update 2 January 2nd, 2025. I've got one more update for you. You know how I mentioned contamination risks? We ended up having a contamination issue, unrelated to the question I asked, that took over a year to recover from. That, combined with a long commute, an average of 45-hour weeks with little notice when I'd have to stay late, including weekend shifts on a lot of the ones that exceeded 45, pressure to cut down on the overtime with no relaxation of deadlines to compensate, and quite a bit of personal stuff made for a really rough time. I was also stuck in the job for the duration due to the golden handcuffs of benefits that perfectly aligned with my needs for dealing with the personal stuff. I tried to somewhat tone down my martial arts-influenced movements, but I was limited in how much I could since many of those movements could actually be adapted to really help my endurance while replacing everything in the building except most of the walls, performing a crazy amount of cleaning, and inspecting everything at the end to ensure the highest contamination risks had been addressed. We had contractors for the wall replacement and other construction work, but we had to do pretty much all the other labor. I also needed to frequently stim to regulate my emotions during this stressful time. As I said in my update, I'm probably autistic, though I currently see little benefit to seeking a formal evaluation, so that also made it harder to tone it down. But that's all leading up to some good news. I've left and am now at my first true office job. It's great, with consistent 40-hour weeks, flexible hours, hybrid WFH, and work that I am passionate about and find interesting. Though I'm still sometimes tempted to do a stance or something at my sit-stand desk when my body is craving something more dynamic than sitting or normal standing, I've so far been able to limit it to being unusually smooth when I kneel down to get something from the low drawer in a filing cabinet, maybe happens a couple times a month, and occasionally, one X/week, spending 5 minutes practicing a stance or other technique that won't take up much room in the bathroom as a break. Pretty soon my WFH will start and I'll have a couple days a week to be as weird as I want when I'm not on a call, so I don't foresee having any issues with coworkers seeing me the way that first comment section was worried about. Story 5. I just got diagnosed with a brain tumor. Original post, April 15th, 2024. My doctor just called and told me. He says it's probably benign, but he's not sure. It looks benign in the pictures at least. He says a neurologist will contact me soon with more info. I hope soon means today or tomorrow. My wife is out shopping. She will be home in 20 minutes and then I will tell her. We have 2 boys, 9 and 11 years old. I want to tell them tonight. I don't want to hide this from them. I don't want to traumatize them, but I think they need to know. Wish me luck. Additional information from OOP to his families and friends. I told my boys. We cried a bit and hugged a bit. After that, we played board games and we were able to laugh and mess around like we usually do. I called my folks last night too, and my brother and then my oldest friend. My boys went to school today and life is moving on. Today I will tell my boss and the people at work. They are all awesome, and every day at 10 and at 14:30 we sit in the cafeteria and just laugh about random stuff. It's the best workplace I've ever been at, but I only started working there 5 months ago. Relevant. Comment. OOP on telling his children about his diagnosis soon as possible. OOP. When I was younger, my nephew lost his mom. She was sick for a year and then finally died. She was such a great person and a great mom. But the grown-ups never told us kids the truth. They always gave us an unrealistically optimistic version. So when she died, we were totally unprepared. My nephew never really recovered. When I found out that the grown-ups had been lying to protect us, I felt some resentment. But I'm not sure what is the right thing to do. I'm so new to this. Maybe you are right, but I feel I must do what feels right to me. Update #1, April 23rd, 2024, 8 days later. Last week I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I've had my ups and downs since. Today I met with my brain surgeon for the first time, and he showed me pictures of the tumor. The bad news is it is a very large tumor, 26 mm in diameter. If you are American, that is about equivalent to a tablespoon. He said there were size classes where less than 10 mm is considered small, 10 to 25 mm is large, and 26 to 40 mm is giant. So I have a giant brain tumor. The good news is it is accessible for the surgeon to remove without cutting into the brain dot. The surgeon expects me to make a full recovery. My brain surgery is scheduled for the beginning of May. I am so relieved that I am not going to die. But I'm still really nervous, and sometimes I'm sad. Sometimes I don't know how to feel. Additional information from OOP. OP. Thanks for all your kind words. Even after receiving good news this morning, I was feeling kinda down. But reading your comments really helped. Now I'm off to bed with an actual smile on my face and some warmth in my heart. I think maybe I do got this. I will update you guys hopefully with some really good news after the surgery. Relevant comment. On the signs of a brain tumor. OP. I have some strange vision problems. In one eye, I essentially have a blind spot near the middle of my field of view. I started really noticing last December. I saw an eye doctor who told me there was nothing wrong with me. I then saw another eye doctor who performed a field of view test. Like the first doctor, he found nothing wrong with my eyes, so he ordered a scan of my head. I was expecting to hear back that I was probably just stressed or something. OOP on what his surgeon said, and if he will need another surgery in the future. OOP. He said he might not be able to on the first try since it is so big. I might need another surgery in 5-10 years. But hey, I'll take it. OOP on the waiting game and how he received the news of his diagnosis. OOP. Oh yes, the wait is the worst. After I got the news, I was at home alone for an hour. I didn't want to tell my wife over the phone, so I had to wait for her to come home so I could tell her the news. Man, that was the longest hour of my life. OOP on if the tumor is likely to be benign, and if not, what the next steps were to be taken. OOP. Doc says 99% odds that it is benign. Thanks for the support. Update #2, May 13th, 2024, 3 weeks later. Hi guys, I promised an update post-surgery, and here it is. My surgery was removed this morning, and it went very well. Even though the surgeon had told me beforehand that everything should be fine, I had been having intrusive thoughts. I kept thinking, what if this, or what if that? When I lay on the bed in the operating room and they had the oxygen mask on, I was really afraid. But then the next thing I know, I am waking up in the post-op wake-up room. In my mind, I did a golf celebration, yes, still here. My vision has already cleared about 90% of the way. I will stay in the hospital for a week for monitoring, but it is all looking good. I will be just fine. I want to thank all of you who reached out. Those that shared their own experiences and also those that offered well wishes and kind words. I read every comment, and during a pretty rough time in my life, they really helped and made me feel better. I am so grateful. Relevant comment. OOP on what type of tumor he had prior to the surgery. OOP. Thanks, yes, it was a pituitary tumor. It was not producing prolactin, so probably adenoma rather than the other one. I am scheduled for an MRI in 6 months to see if they got it all. OOP on what other symptoms he noticed and not realized that they were connected to his brain tumor. OOP. It was the same for me. The tumor was putting pressure on the optic nerve, causing large blind spots in my field of view. I also had other symptoms that I had not connected the dots that they had the same cause. Headaches, nosebleeds, and a constant feeling of pressure inside my head. And yes, this experience has given me so much perspective. I remember in the first few days I was sure I only had a few months left. I recall walking outside and just enjoying all the different sensations. The scent in the air, the breeze on my skin, and the caw of a raven. At that moment I thought, I can't believe I've taken this for granted. And now it all just feels like a big scare, made to remind me of what I have. New update. Diagnosed with a brain tumor. Final update, January 2nd, 2025, 7.5 months later. This is a pretty long one. I decided to write it all out, just so I could kind of close this chapter and move on. My first post about this was before I even told my wife, and the comments were really helpful. So if anyone is interested in the full story, here it is. Last spring I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I had been having some annoying and unusual problems with my vision, but my eye doctor couldn't find anything wrong with my eyes. I went to a second eye doctor, but he couldn't find anything wrong with my eyes either, so he ordered a CT scan of my head just in case. I wasn't really worried and was almost positive that it was something stress-related. I'm 40 years old and people around me were all having strange stress-related issues, so it had to be that. A couple of days after my CT scan, the eye doctor called me up and told me that there was a tumor in my pituitary gland that was causing pressure to my optic nerve. He said that I would need brain surgery to remove the tumor. I started shaking. I asked him where exactly the tumor was located and if it was accessible. He said, "Well, actually, it is in the very center of your head. These kinds of tumors are usually removed by an operation through the nose." I took the news quite hard. When he said, "in the very center of your head," I took that to mean the tumor was in the very center of my brain. He didn't know much more about it, but told me that he would send a referral to the neurosurgery ward and that I would be contacted by a brain surgeon soon. I drove home trying to plan out how I would break the news to my wife and decide if and how I would tell my two sons aged 9 and 11. At this point, I was 100% certain I was about to die. I was too afraid to Google anything since I just couldn't handle seeing the bad news I knew in my heart I would find. I sat on the couch as I waited for my wife to come home from work, trying my best not to let my sons see the tears coming from my eyes. When my wife got home, I was able to fool her into joining me and taking the dog for a run to get her out of the house and away from the boys. As I was about to stop the car, she asked conversationally if I had heard back from the eye doctor. I stopped the car and told her that actually I did hear back and proceeded to tell her the news. She was devastated, of course. There was a lot of other shit going on in our lives. Neither of us were prepared for this. Later that night, we sat down with the boys and told them the news also. I had debated if I should tell them, but I have such a great relationship with them. I couldn't keep something like this from them. I knew they would have wanted to know, and if it turned out for the worst, it would be better to give them time to process rather than waking up one day with me gone. They were shocked initially, but all in all, they handled the news well. Later that night, we played board games together and were able to laugh and have fun just like we usually did. In hindsight, I think they never really believed that anything terrible could happen. Kids are a bit like that. Optimists at heart. Over the next few days, I told other people close to me, like my parents. Every time I tried to put as positive a spin on it as I could, even though I didn't feel it myself. Every time I was alone with nothing to occupy my time, the thoughts would come tumbling down on me. I kept thinking how unfair this was to my sons, who deserved to have a normal childhood. Now I was about to royally fuck that up by dying. My cousin lost his mom when he was 11 and he never really recovered fully. Will they have to deal with that too? I started to feel like I had cancer everywhere, and the brain tumor had metastasized from somewhere else. I could feel the cancer in my abdomen. I tried to tell myself that I was probably imagining things, and that it was probably just something non-serious. But I was overruled by a thought saying, "That was what you thought about the vision problem, silly. No, this is serious. You are going to die." I made peace with the fact that I was dying. I hoped I would have at least 5 or 10 more years. Then I could properly prepare my boys. Just a few more years would mean so much. I started to view every day as a gift. I would revel in the small things we take for granted, like walking to work on a beautiful day. A raven cawing subtly from atop a lamppost while the breeze caressed my skin. About a week later, I heard from the brain surgeon. He told me more about the surgery, and he was actually able to convince me that my prognosis was in fact quite good. He said that he had performed many surgeries like that, and he had a 97% survival rate with his patients. Seeing as I was young and in good shape, my chances were even better than that. He did also tell me that the tumor was quite large, almost 3 centimeters in diameter, so that worried me a little bit. He booked a date for my operation only 3 weeks later, which I was very thankful for. I will never forget the day of my surgery. I told the nurses that I was very nervous about the surgery and to please give me some really strong anti-anxiety meds. They gave me a Sobril, which did not help even a little bit. I waited in a room of people who were also on their way to surgery. Finally, a nurse called my name and asked me to follow her. For some reason, I thought they would make me lay down in a hospital bed and then roll me into the operating room. So I was quite surprised as I followed her through a couple of doors and found myself standing in front of the operating table and about 8 people who were there for the surgery. One of them asked me to lay down on the table, but as I did, she said, "No, the other way. The pillow is for your knees, not your head." They then asked me to say my full name and asked if I knew what type of operation I was there for. I remember being very awkward when I said I was there to have a brain tumor removed. I was unprepared for the question, but I know they ask it to make sure there isn't a mix-up where they perform a surgery on the wrong person. As the anesthesiologist was hooking me up, I was so afraid. I could feel the tears streaming from my eyes even as I was trying my best to act normally. I think my lip was shaking a little bit also. I remember her stroking my forehead and telling me everything was going to be all right and that I was in good hands. For some reason, all my fears had returned, and as everything was about to go black, I wondered what would await me on the other side. Would I wake up with a massive brain injury? Would I be handicapped? Would I never wake up? I woke up 4 hours later in the recovery room and I was feeling great. I was so happy to be alive, and I could hardly believe that I barely felt a thing. I could even breathe through my nose, even though the surgery had been performed through the nose. My brain surgeon came in to check on me, and loopy as I was, I said to him, "Hey man, great job!" I offered him a fist bump and he laughed as he first awkwardly began for a handshake before transitioning to a fist. "You rock, man," I told him. He and the recovery nurse laughed it off as he headed off to his second brain surgery of the day. "What an awesome guy," I said to the nurse. "He sure is," she agreed, smiling. Not saying anything negative about the other surgeons, but him, he is something special. He always makes such an effort and takes such good care of his patients. Wow, I thought, a brain surgeon and a good person. What a guy. I had none of the expected negative side effects from my surgery and only needed to stay in the hospital for 5 days total. I recovered relatively quickly and was back to work only 3 weeks after my surgery. I could have taken more time off, but I actually really loved my job and couldn't wait to be back. As the weeks went by, I couldn't help but feel how strange it was that this chapter was actually over. After all the fear and anxiety, it was so weird to have made it out without any ill effects. Like a beached fish ready to die, only to be picked up and tossed back into the water. Life just resumed normally as if nothing happened. It's now been a year since I first started noticing the problems with my vision that started all this. I still have some lingering issues with my vision, but after all that has happened, I don't really care. It's just a little annoying. It doesn't preclude me from working or doing other things. I will take it. In some ways, I feel now like I was a bit of a drama queen about all this. I am in a Reddit thread for people with brain tumors. There I sometimes see stories from people who really did get handed a death sentence. That really puts things into perspective. A pituitary gland tumor is probably the easiest type of brain tumor to remove. It can barely be called a brain tumor since it is in the pituitary gland that is attached to the underside of the brain, but not part of the brain itself. Sometimes I think about what if I met someone who got a real brain tumor. Would they judge me for having it easy? Probably not, I guess. In any case, looking back, 2024 was still sort of a rough year, even with the enormous relief after the surgery and the incredible eventual outcome. I've realized I'm still recovering from everything mentally. There has been some extra strain on my family just from all the added stress on top of everything else, but I can feel it's getting better. Sometimes I remember moments from the time before I had the surgery. Moments when I hoped I would get at least 5, 10 more years to live. And especially the moment when I was laying on the operating table with tears running from my eyes as the anesthesiologist caressed my forehead, telling me softly that everything would be all right. I think 2025 is going to be a good year. I think everything is going to be all right. Relevant comment? OOP explains about today's technology and how it has helped with the surgery. OP. Well, what I can tell you is, it is not as bad as it sounds. The technology these guys now have has progressed so much in the last few years. My surgeon actually had FPV glasses while performing the surgery so he could see the tumor in 3D. They also have some new type of dissolving gauze that enabled me to breathe through my nose immediately after surgery. My nose was barely even sore when I woke up. Will OOP have a full recovery, or may have further issues after surgery and recovery? OOP. Thank you. Yes, supposedly I should have no life-threatening issues due to this later in life. When they did a follow-up scan 6 months later, there was absolutely nothing left from the tumor, which is rare from such a large tumor, and my surgeon had prepared me that there probably would be some traces left. OOP provides details on when he knew he had to make appointments to get his eyes checked. OOP. There were blind splotches in my field of view. Mine were near the middle of my field of view, but usually this type of tumor would affect the peripheral vision first and then move gradually inward. The splotches were consistent, so I didn't have good and bad days. They were always there. OOP explains about his experiences with the doctors and when he needed them to take his concerns seriously. OOP. My first eye doctor kind of shrugged it off as she didn't find anything wrong with my eyes themselves. She sent me away with a recommendation to buy some eye drops. My second eye doctor realized straight away that something strange was going on and ordered a CT scan. My wife has actually been having some vision issues for the past few years as well. She had also seen some eye doctors that couldn't find anything wrong. She ended up having an MRI, and all they could find was some inflammation in the sinuses that might be interfering with the optic nerves. So I guess that is a thing. We are also in our early 40s. Has OOP's vision improved significantly after the surgery? And if there are any other symptoms showing up? OOP. Right after surgery, my eyesight improved to about 90% of normal. But the last 3 months it has been regressing a little. It is nowhere near as bad as it was before the surgery, but it is at about 80% now and is no longer getting worse. I also sometimes get a bit of double vision, especially when looking into a person's face for some reason. My eye doctor told me that it could take as long as 2 years before eyesight is fully recovered, if it does ever fully recover, so I guess I will just wait and see. But even if it never recovers, I won't complain. I wished for more years and my wish was fulfilled.